it just hits you like a fire hose, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Every morning you open your phone and you're slammed by the sheer volume of it all.
You are?
You've got these explosive geopolitical conflicts over here and then these scientific breakthroughs over there that are literally changing what it means to be human.
It's not just the volume, though, is it? It's the velocity. I mean, if you actually tried to consume all of this raw, just one story after another, you'd drown.
You would?
But when you start to synthesize it, you see these things that seem totally separate. You know, a military action, digital addiction, these new medical revolutions, they're all accelerating at the same time.
Okay, so let's unpack this. That's our mission today. We're going to dive deep into this current stack of information, a snapshot of early December 2025.
Right.
And we're going to try and distill these huge, sprawling stories into crucial nuggets of knowledge. We're here to give you a comprehensive but fast understanding of where the world actually stands right now.
And that's what's so fascinating. It's the convergence. We're going to connect the dots. We'll explore why, a naval strike near Venezuela is somehow related to why rage bait is the word of the year.
Yeah.
Every piece of this global puzzle is moving so fast. And we'll dig into why these stories really matter to your daily life.
We have to start with the most explosive material in the stack, and that's centered on U.S. military operations in the Caribbean, specifically near the Venezuelan coast. The scrutiny on the White House right now is, it's intense.
It is. And the core of the controversy, it comes down to a really irregular sequence of events.
Right.
The White House has now confirmed that a U.S. Navy admiral ordered a second strike on one of these suspected Venezuelan drug boats.
A second strike. Not one, but two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The vessel was hit, it was supposedly incapacitated, and then it was hit again.
And that's the fundamental tension point, isn't it? The official story versus this intense legal and ethical scrutiny.
Well, yeah. The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, she's been very firm. She's insisting the commander acted, and I'm quoting here, well within his authority in the law.
But the very existence of a second strike, especially if the boat was no longer a threat, that's the whole flashpoint.
That's the critical legal challenge. Yeah. And the military story has, it's clearly evolved since September.
How so?
Initially, the details were really sparse. It was all about self-defense. But this later admission that there was a deliberate second strike.
Which could have been targeting survivors or a vessel that was already neutralized?
Precisely. That's what's drawing serious bipartisan scrutiny from lawmakers. They want to know, did the commander violate the rules of engagement? Or was the ROE itself changed to allow for this?
This goes way beyond a typical military engagement. It feels like it's eroding standard maritime law,
Yeah.
about how you engage and how you treat potential survivors.
It does. And the figure right at the center of this whole firestorm is the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
He's facing allegations that he gave an order to kill everybody on board that vessel.
An allegation he flatly denies, by the way. He's calling it politically motivated. But the political reality is that specific allegation, the idea of targeting survivors, has turned this into a political inferno.
So lawmakers don't just want to know what happened.
No, they want to know what guidance Secretary Hegseth gave his commanders for these operations. The stakes here are enormous. This transforms a routine drug patrol into a potential act of war.
And just to add this bizarre, almost surreal layer to it all, there was a Canadian publisher that condemned Hegseth for using Franklin the Turtle in a social media post he made about the strike.
I saw that. It's a strange mix of pop culture and a deadly, serious geopolitical incident.
But this isn't winding down. It feels like it's escalating.
Absolutely. Our sources are confirming President Trump is convening a high-level meeting. He's got top aides, including Hegseth, Senator Marco Rubio.
And what are they meeting about?
The next steps for operations in Venezuela. They're talking about many options being on the table to increase pressure on the Maduro regime.
And these options are serious.
Yeah.
We're hearing talk about land attacks or what they're explicitly calling a Panama 2.0.
Yeah.
For anyone listening who hasn't heard that term recently, what does Panama 2.0 actually imply? What are the objectives there?
Panama 2.0 is a very pointed historical reference. It's talking about the 1989 U.S. invasion of Panama, Operation Just Cause.
Right, to get Noriega.
Exactly. The main goal was removing the military dictator, Manuel Noriega, from power and installing a democratically elected government. It was about rapid regime change through swift, decisive military force.
So when they say Panama 2.0, they're not talking about limited strikes or just stopping drug boats anymore.
No, not at all.
They're signaling a potential direct short-term military intervention to decapitate the Maduro regime.
That's precisely what it means. And Maduro's regime seems to understand that. They're reportedly preparing for the fallout.
How are they preparing?
They're mobilizing forces specifically for guerrilla warfare, for what they call anarchization if the U.S. actually invades. They're getting ready to make any potential occupation extremely costly and long.
So they know how serious the options on the table are.
They do. This whole situation is still highly kinetic, very volatile.
Okay, let's shift focus from there to Europe. We have diplomatic efforts to end the conflict in Ukraine. And there's this very delicate, high-stakes dance happening in Moscow.
Mm-hmm. And it involves some, let's say, non-traditional players from the U.S. administration.
Right, not your typical State Department diplomat.
Not at all. You have Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and he's accompanied by Jared Kushner. They're scheduled to meet with Vladimir Putin this week in Moscow.
To discuss what, specifically?
The revised U.S. peace plan. This signals a very direct, White House-led effort to force some kind of movement in the negotiations. They seem to be circumventing some of the usual diplomatic channels.
And what's the feeling from the Ukrainian side?
Well, Ukrainian President Zelensky has given it a sort of cautious nod. He said the revised plan looks better than the previous versions.
So that suggests there's been some real, actual movement, something Ukraine might find acceptable.
It does suggest movement, yeah.
Yeah.
But how meaningful is Zelensky's better comment? I mean, Putin still wants all 5 regions that are central to this whole thing.
Including territories Russia only partially holds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the sources are very clear where the sticking points still are. Land and security. How much land gets transferred, and what do the post-war security guarantees actually look like?
And any plan has to deal with Russia's demand for demilitarization.
Which is a complete non-starter for Ukraine. So yes, it looks better, but the core issues are still there.
And this U.S. diplomatic push, which seems to be moving really fast, maybe even unilaterally, it's doing more than just trying to move peace talks forward. It's jolting the entire transatlantic alliance.
If you connect this to the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, this whole maneuver is sowing fresh fear about the future of NATO.
Why is that?
Because a peace plan that's gaining traction, especially one negotiated mainly between Washington and Moscow, it risks involving compromises.
Compromises like permanent neutrality for Ukraine or temporary land concessions.
Exactly. And a lot of core NATO members, particularly in Eastern Europe, would find that profoundly unsettling.
So the fear is that the hunt for peace, if it bypasses the allies, could fundamentally change what the alliance is all about, what its commitment to collective defense and Ukrainian integrity actually means.
You've got it. It makes this negotiation as much a test of NATO's unity as it is a path to peace. The integrity of the alliance itself is now. It's a variable in all this.
Beyond these huge diplomatic and military events, there are other areas of really acute international instability that need our attention. Let's start with the political shockwaves from that awful fire in Hong Kong.
Right, the blaze at Wang Fuk Court. It was a massive residential tower, and it burned uncontrollably for 2 days. The number of dead and injured just keeps climbing.
And the initial investigation pointed to unsafe netting on the building.
Yeah, this netting they often use to catch construction debris. It turns out it was on buildings all across the city, and it created this huge public safety hazard. It basically accelerated the fire spread and made it harder for emergency responders to do their job.
So a physical tragedy immediately spills over into social and political instability.
It does. As the death count rises and the public is mourning, the government is reportedly trying to stifle dissent, to control the narrative.
That's a classic response, isn't it?
It is. They're trying to control information, stop public demonstrations about these safety failures because they're afraid that anger over unsafe buildings could, mutate into a broader anti-government protest.
So they're trying to keep the focus narrow on the building owners, not on systemic government failures.
Exactly.
And then in contrast to all these flare-ups, we see the Pope stepping into a major diplomatic role. He's trying to bring some stability and moral clarity to the Middle East.
That's right. Pope Leo XIV is in Lebanon right now, which is a country under enormous strain. He's asking for the divine gift of peace alongside both Christian and Muslim leaders. It's a big show of interfaith solidarity.
And his visit is highlighting the resilience of the Christian communities there.
It is their resilience despite decades of regional turmoil. But crucially, he's also doubling down on the Vatican's long-standing position.
The two-state solution for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yes. And the Vatican's position carries significant moral weight. The Pope's advocacy reinforces the need for a solution that, respects Israel's security, but also guarantees a viable, independent Palestinian state.
And a fair resolution for Jerusalem.
And a fair resolution for Jerusalem.
Yeah.
His presence there, it just underscores the humanitarian and religious dimensions of a conflict that we often only see through a military and political lens.
Okay, let's move stateside now. We're pivoting from global conflict to a huge domestic legal spectacle that is dominating the headlines, and that is the Luigi Mangione trial.
Right. Mangione, the man charged with the murder of the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
And this week is all about crucial pretrial hearings.
Yeah, they're deciding what evidence is actually going to be admissible. His defense team is fighting hard to exclude items that were found in his backpack.
And sources suggest that backpack contained, what, manifestos, notes?
Potentially, yeah. Manifestos, notes on the healthcare system, maybe even tools related to the attack. It's key evidence.
And the hearing itself has produced some incredible, almost unbelievable details about how he's being held. A prison guard testified that Mangione is being watched very closely to prevent an Epstein-style situation.
That is a stunning admission. It speaks volumes about the high risk and the national security profile they've attached to this guy.
What does that imply exactly?
It implies that the correctional authorities are afraid Mangione might be targeted by someone else, or that he might try to commit suicide, either because of who his victim was or the political context of the alleged motive. It just shows the extreme level of scrutiny he's under.
And what's equally fascinating is how we're sort of unpacking Mangione's persona through the testimony of a corrections officer.
Right. This officer described having these deep conversations with him.
About literature, about the flaws in different healthcare systems.
Yeah, which was the alleged motive for the crime, and also about media coverage. Apparently, Mangione was bemoaning the fact that he was being compared to the Unabomber.
That detail feels critical. It's like he's trying to manage his own public image from inside a jail cell.
I think so. He's a high IQ individual who allegedly targeted a corporate figure because of this deep ideological rage. The Unabomber comparison clearly hits a little too close to home for him.
Because both used violence against what they saw as systemic failures.
Exactly. But Mangione seems to want to define himself differently, maybe as a more, modern, politically focused vigilante or something.
And the public fascination. It's just startling. The sources describe a crowd of crazed fans and super fans.
Some of them are even dressing up, lining the streets outside the courthouse in New York City trying to get his attention.
It raises this really important question for all of us, Why are these figures getting super fans?
It's a dark cultural spectacle. The alleged anti-corporate motive, combined with the drama of the violence, it transforms the defendant into this distorted anti-hero for a certain segment of the public.
It feels like it connects directly to the digital age, this fascination with extreme individualized defiance.
A kind of dark celebrity that goes way beyond the crime itself. It says so much about our current cultural relationship with crime, with notoriety, and with that deep-seated anger a lot of people feel towards institutions like the healthcare system. It's the convergence of deep rage and spectacle.
Okay, moving away from the courtroom drama, let's look at the churn in U.S. politics. And we can start with information control, really, at the highest office. The White House has proactively released details of President Trump's October preventative screening MRI.
Yeah, they did. This scan looked at his cardiovascular system and his abdomen. Two areas of, frequent health concern for men in his age bracket.
And the result?
The White House physician stated the results were perfectly normal. This kind of detailed preemptive release seems clearly intended to just quell all the weeks of speculation and rumors about the president's physical condition.
Okay, on the legal front, a clear setback for former Trump lawyer Alina Habba.
Yes, a U.S. appeals court upheld a lower court decision. She's been disqualified from serving as New Jersey's top prosecutor.
And the ruling was based on what?
The crucial detail here, which the sources highlight, is the legal context. Her appointment was challenged because she allegedly didn't meet the residency requirements to hold that high-ranking state position.
So it wasn't about her performance, it was about procedure.
Exactly. It was about procedural and constitutional rules for a state office, which makes it a pretty significant political and legal defeat for her.
And as we move into December, the domestic focus also turns to the rituals of the holiday season and the message they send. Melania Trump revealed the White House holiday decorations.
The theme this year is, home is where the heart is. It's meant to evoke a sense of stability and comfort, especially during such a tumultuous year. The whole presentation focuses on American generosity, patriotism, and gratitude.
There was a specific detail I saw about the layout this year, because the East Wing is being demolished and renovated.
Right. The tree that traditionally honors Gold Star families, those who've lost a relative in military service, it's now in the Blue Room.
Right next to the official White House Christmas tree.
Yeah. And that relocation itself is symbolic. It brings that tribute much closer to the very core of the holiday display.
Now, staying domestic, there's a huge accountability battle happening in the sports world, and it has some pretty profound business implications.
You're talking about NASCAR.
Yeah. The top motorsport series is facing a high-stakes antitrust lawsuit in federal court.
And this suit was brought by two really significant teams, Michael Jordan's 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports.
So this is not a minor grievance. This is a challenge to the fundamental financial structure of the entire sport.
It is. The core of the antitrust claim is that NASCAR illegally controls revenue sharing and restricts the rights of team owners.
How so?
Well, they're arguing it prevents fair competition and equitable profit distribution for the teams, especially when it comes to media rights and sponsorship deals. The teams are basically saying NASCAR operates like a cartel.
And it's stifling growth and value for the independent racing operations.
That's the argument. And the testimony has already been incredibly dramatic. Denny Hamlin, a star driver and part owner of 23XI, he actually broke down in tears on the stand.
Wow.
Yeah, it just illustrates the intense financial and emotional pressure this lawsuit represents for everyone involved.
So what's the potential outcome here?
Well, some sources are saying this court fight has the potential to, quote, blow motorsports apart. It could force NASCAR to completely restructure its relationship with the teams, maybe move closer to a franchise model like you see in the NFL or the NBA.
Which would be a massive, massive shift in how that sport operates.
A total sea change.
Okay, let's shift now to domestic security and migration. We have to address the fallout from that shooting incident in D.C. involving a National Guard member. The suspect is Ramanullah Lakanwal, an Afghan national.
And the sources are revealing some crucial and frankly concerning background details on him. Lakanwal served in a CIA-backed Zero unit in Afghanistan before he came to the U.S.
What are these Zero units?
They were paramilitary counterterrorism forces. They often operated with very minimal oversight, which means Lakanwal's background involves complex, high-stress, and potentially very traumatic operational experience.
So after the attack, the immediate question was, did the government miss any red flags during his vetting process when he entered the country?
And the answer, according to our sources, is troubling. New details from emails from 2024, which CBS News obtained, show that a caseworker had serious documented concerns about Lakanwal's mental health.
What kind of concerns?
The caseworker noted he couldn't hold a stable job for over a year and had specific psychological distress. The systemic failure here is that these documented concerns just didn't adequately impact the final security or asylum decision.
And this incident has now directly fueled the administration's crackdown on immigration.
It has. In the wake of this shooting, the Trump administration has shifted asylum policies. There's a new enforcement effort called Operation Swamp Sweep, which is centered in New Orleans.
And what is Swamp Sweep?
It appears to be a very aggressive initiative. It's aimed at identifying and expediting the deportation of non-citizens who have current or past mental health issues or any record of instability. They're tightened the criteria for asylum dramatically.
At the same time, we've got this critical safety crisis emerging in the transportation sector. It's not a security issue, but it's a major infrastructure vulnerability.
A federal review found that a striking 44% of U.S. trucking schools, they don't comply with government rules.
44%. That's nearly half.
It is. And it's leading to this massive threat where thousands of these schools could lose their accreditation as the Department of Transportation cracks down on the industry.
Why are they failing? What rules are they breaking?
The failures are fundamental. We're talking insufficient training hours, unqualified or unlicensed instructors.
Wow.
And in some cases, outright falsification of safety records just to push drivers through the programs faster.
And what's driving that? Just the need for more drivers?
It's the industry's desperate need for drivers. It's leading some schools to prioritize speed over safety. And the result is you have poorly trained drivers hitting the road.
And given how essential trucking is, I mean, it moves nearly 75% of all freight in the U.S. That is a serious safety, economic, and infrastructure vulnerability.
It is. It has to be addressed immediately to prevent major supply chain disruptions and, catastrophic accidents.
Okay, here's where we make that critical shift. We're moving from physical conflicts and courtrooms to the digital war that's being waged for our attention and our sanity. The information ecosystem is now officially broken enough that it's influencing language itself.
That is the key synthesis point, isn't it? The digital strain is now measurable. The Oxford University Press named rage bait its word of the year for 2025.
Let's delve into rage bait for a second. It's the use of provocative, outrageous, or inflammatory content,
Right.
designed specifically not to inform, but to maximize social media traffic. Clicks, engagement, all of it, regardless of whether it's even true.
And the fact that the OUP chose this word shows a much deeper awareness now that the whole incentive structure of social media platforms rewards extreme emotional responses.
So this isn't just a cultural observation.
No, it's an acknowledgement of a recognized mechanism, a tool for psychological and political manipulation. We see it everywhere. I mean, even in that unverified kill everybody allegation against Hegseth. The story is framed to provoke the maximum outrage, because maximum outrage equals maximum traffic.
And the policy response in some parts of the world shows how seriously this is being taken. Australia is moving forward with a sweeping ban on social media for everyone under 16.
That is a radical regulatory move. They're trying to apply age restrictions to what has, historically been a totally unregulated public square.
And how is that being received?
The scale of public feedback is massive. It shows how divided people are. BTN surveyed over 17,000 Australian kids and teenagers about the ban, and they found widespread anxiety about being cut off from their friends, from their culture. But that's balanced against, parental relief.
What are the challenges of actually enforcing a ban like that? I mean, can a government really stop teens from getting online?
Enforcement is the major challenge. It relies on tech companies verifying age, which they often resist, and on parents complying. The fear is that instead of protecting kids, it just creates this shadow digital life where there's no oversight at all. It just pushes them onto less regulated, maybe even darker platforms.
And this whole policy conversation is being backed up by emerging science. A new study strengthens the case for holding off on giving kids phones early.
It does. The study provides some really definitive causal links. It says children who own a smartphone by age 12 face higher risks of several serious health issues.
Such as?
Higher rates of depression, for one, poor sleep quality because of the blue light affecting melatonin cycles, and obesity, which is largely attributed to more sedentary behavior replacing physical activity.
So it's creating this critical, measurable link between digital consumption and actual physical well-being.
It is.
And this digital strain, it leads us right into the state of the economy. This raises an important question. Why is the K-shaped economy dominating all the economic discussions right now? What does that even mean in practical terms?
The K-shape is the perfect way to describe a recovery or just an economic climate that's defined by sharp divergence. Just picture the letter K.
Okay.
The top arm is soaring upward. That represents the segments that are thriving.
Yeah.
So tech, high finance, luxury goods, highly skilled remote workers.
And the bottom arm, the one going down.
That segment is simultaneously suffering. This includes low-wage service workers, traditional brick-and-mortar retail like we're seeing with Newell Brands and Yankee Candle, and consumers who are just getting crushed by inflation and interest rates. The K-shape means the overall GDP might look healthy, but wealth inequality is just accelerating rapidly.
We can see clear indicators of that strain, of that divergence, in new consumer hurdles, like the new travel fee that's being introduced.
Right, starting February 1st. U.S. air travelers who don't have a real ID or a passport or another accepted ID, they're going to be charged a new $45 fee.
And why is that happening now?
It's a direct consequence of the long-delayed rollout of the real ID requirements. The fee is being pitched as, an administrative cost for manual identity verification.
But the controversy is that this $45 fee disproportionately affects lower-income people, isn't it?
It does. People who might not have the time or the resources or the specific documents you need to get one of those enhanced IDs, it's basically a punitive barrier to travel that reinforces that economic divide.
And we also see corporate struggles and accountability issues that perfectly illustrate this K-shaped reality. On one hand, you have Starbucks agreeing to pay a massive $35 million settlement to workers in New York City.
For violating labor laws.
Yeah.
And the specific violations were egregious. Denying regular shifts, illegally cutting hours. They were using scheduling tactics that just destroyed the workers' ability to earn a stable living. That $35 million settlement is a huge win for labor accountability.
And then on the other hand, you look at the struggling traditional consumer product companies. Newell Brands, the maker of Yankee Candle and a bunch of other household goods, is closing stores and cutting 900 jobs.
And their shares have sunk almost 62% this year. The growth has just slowed to a crawl.
Why?
Inflationary pressure. Consumers are prioritizing essential goods. They're not buying as many discretionary items like premium candles or non-essential home goods. So that juxtaposition, a massive labor settlement in the thriving service sector next to deep job cuts in established retail, it's a perfect and painful illustration of the K-shaped economy.
Okay, let's pivot now to the truly revolutionary changes that are happening in health and science. We have to start with the biggest public health crisis globally: obesity.
The obesity revolution is officially underway, and it's being driven by both policy and pharmacology.
And it starts with the World Health Organization, the WHO. They've made a major endorsement.
A huge one. They officially declared obesity a disease that requires medical treatment, not just a lifestyle condition.
Why is that declaration calling it a disease? Why is that so crucial for the global response?
It changes everything from a policy and an insurance perspective. By classifying it as a disease, the WHO legitimizes the need for long-term medical treatment. And crucially, they conditionally recommended GLP-1 drugs.
Like Ozempic and Wegovy.
Exactly. They recommended them as long-term treatments for obesity under their new guidelines. So the WHO is now calling for urgent global action on manufacturing scale-up and on the affordability of these drugs.
For those who are just hearing about these, how do GLP-1 agonists actually work on the body?
They mimic a hormone that occurs naturally in your gut when you eat, called glucagon-like peptide 1.
Okay.
And when GLP-1 is activated, it does two main things. First, it signals your brain to feel full, so it significantly reduces your appetite. And second, it slows down how fast your stomach empties, so food stays in there longer, which reinforces that feeling of fullness.
That dual action sounds profoundly effective.
It is. But the excitement doesn't stop with weight loss. New applications for this whole class of drugs are emerging, and they're suggesting much wider neurological benefits.
Really?
Yes. Liraglutide, which is sold as Saxenda for weight management, has been found in recent trials to actually slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease.
That's a massive breakthrough.
It is. The connection seems to be linked to the drug's ability to reduce inflammation and oxidative stress in the brain. It suggests these drugs have neuroprotective effects far beyond what they were designed for.
And policy responses are accelerating to complement this, right? The UK expanded its sugar tax this week.
They did. They expanded it to include milk-based drinks and coffee drinks with high sugar content. They're actively trying to adjust the food environment to make healthy choices easier and unhealthy choices more expensive. It's a policy framework that supports the medical revolution.
And speaking of the food environment, the sources are pointing to a huge fight brewing within that industry. Big food companies are grappling with a post-semaglutide reality.
It is a fundamental crisis for them.
Yeah.
There's a book called Off the Scales that details the industry's plans and maneuvers to keep people consuming their products even while they're on these potent weight loss drugs.
What kind of maneuvers?
Things like health washing their products, focusing heavily on adding vitamins, lobbying for smaller portion sizes, but at higher costs to keep profit margins up.
So it's a literal battle for the consumer's appetite.
Pitting revolutionary pharmacology against multi-billion-dollar food manufacturers who are just desperately trying to protect their market share, the outcome is going to reshape the global supply chain for decades.
Okay, from human health to the extremes of the universe. Researchers are exploring the dynamics of Mars, and we have some new fascinating findings about Martian lightning.
Yeah, I always thought of Mars as this quiet, cold, dead planet. Lightning suggests a level of atmospheric turbulence that you just wouldn't expect.
It does. Researchers have detected 55 instances of what they're calling mini-lightning, or triboelectric discharges.
And they did this by basically listening to the whirling winds recorded by NASA's Perseverance rover.
So what exactly is a triboelectric discharge in the Martian context?
It's static electricity. It's generated by friction. On Earth, we see it in thunderstorms. But on Mars, the super arid environment and the constant movement of all that fine dust creates intense friction.
Which leads to a buildup of static charge.
Exactly. And when that charge releases, it creates those mini lightning events. This detection gives us a missing piece of the puzzle about the planet's atmosphere and its weather dynamics.
And bringing things back toward Earth's atmosphere, but still related to space, there was that major safety issue with cosmic ray vulnerability in aviation.
Right, the Airbus recall. They successfully modified the software on most of their recalled A320 family jets.
And this was a necessary and quick action after this vulnerability to solar flares and cosmic rays emerged.
The core issue was that a highly energetic cosmic ray could literally flip a bit in the computer's memory, in the flight control systems, which could potentially disrupt avionics or cause critical systems to fail.
And that grounding of thousands of aircraft globally was a huge economic disruption. It really underscores how vulnerable our modern world is to basic space weather.
And here's where biology meets extreme physics. This mind-bending story of adaptation. Chernobyl's survivor fungus.
A fungus that can eat radiation. That sounds like something out of science fiction.
It's very real science. A unique species found in the highly contaminated Chernobyl disaster zone has mutated and evolved to literally eat nuclear radiation.
How does that even work?
The mechanism is called radiosynthesis. This organism uses melanin, the same pigment in human skin, to capture gamma radiation and convert it into chemical energy. It's a lot like how plants use chlorophyll to convert sunlight into food.
That discovery has some profound and immediate implications.
Absolutely. Think about space travel. Radiation exposure is the primary limiting factor for long-duration missions, like to Mars. This fungus, or something derived from its mechanism, could potentially be used to create self-healing radiation shielding for astronauts.
Or even for cancer protection here on Earth.
Potentially, yeah, by neutralizing harmful energy. It's biological ingenuity at its most extreme.
And finally, a piece of health ingenuity targeting our youngest population. The FDA has approved new specialized glasses.
Yeah, glasses designed to slow nearsightedness in children. This is a simple but really significant solution to a common developmental issue called myopia, which is on the rise globally.
So how do they work?
They use this advanced lens technology that manages your peripheral vision, which encourages the eye to stop elongating. And that slows down the progression of nearsightedness early in a child's life.
Okay, let's wrap up with a look at historical context and culture, starting with a major milestone in Australian broadcasting.
December 3rd, 2025 marks the 80th anniversary of the Country Hour. It was first broadcast on ABC Radio way back in 1945.
Which makes it the longest continuously running radio program in the entire country.
It's a true cultural touchstone. And its coverage over those 8 decades, it really reflects this profound change in Australian agriculture. It chronicles the nation's economic and environmental evolution.
How so?
Well, it documents the huge transition away from that famous era of riding on the sheeps back in the 1950s, when rural exports were the cornerstone of the whole economy.
And now?
Now the program focuses on the widespread practice of cropping, grains, rice, all sorts of diversified crops. It just reflects the necessary changes in technology, water management, and climate adaptation.
And shifting from there to high culture, we have the incredible story of a long-lost masterpiece that was finally rediscovered and sold.
The Rubens painting, Crucifixion of Jesus Christ. It was considered lost for over 4 centuries. It just vanished, probably hidden during periods of political upheaval like the French Revolution.
And it was recently found inside a Paris townhouse.
An auctioneer just stumbled upon it during a routine appraisal visit last year. It was just a dirty, neglected canvas.
Wow.
After it was authenticated, this lost piece of Baroque heritage recently sold for $2.7 million at auction. It's brought this profound historical artifact back into the public eye.
So what does this all mean when we put all the pieces together? We've covered ground from Washington to Moscow, from the depths of the ocean to the dusty surface of Mars. We've seen this critical, accelerating intersection of digital life and mental health. You have the recognized sickness of rage bait on one side and this measurable health crisis linked to early smartphone use on the other.
Right. And we've seen the ethical and diplomatic quandaries of these high-stakes military operations in Venezuela, challenging the very rules of engagement and the fragility of the transatlantic unity over Ukraine.
At the same time, we've tracked these medical leaps that are truly changing how we define and treat a global disease like obesity.
The sources confirm it. The rapid acceleration of technology, whether it's social media's exploitative algorithms, pharmaceutical breakthroughs, or our ability to harness extreme biological adaptation, it's simultaneously creating profound new risks and revolutionary solutions.
So our biggest challenge isn't a shortage of information.
No, it's not even a shortage of solutions. It's the speed. The speed at which we have to process, regulate, and adapt to the disruptive impact these forces are having on our politics, our health, and our societal stability. We are living through an era where fundamental truths about economics, health, and law are being redefined daily.
That leaves us with a provocative thought for you, the learner, to consider as you digest all of this. We've analyzed the convergence of the digital world and physical health. So, if rage bait is the psychological sickness of the internet age and GLP-1 drugs are a promising physical solution to a global disease, what technological or policy intervention will finally treat the K-shaped economy? And maybe more personally, given the relentless pressure of this information flow, what role do you play in slowing down your own consumption so that you can be truly informed rather than just perpetually overwhelmed or, even worse, outraged?